In this video, you will learn how to use percents. Now to begin, we will discuss how to find the percent of increase or decrease of something. So to calculate the percent of increase or decrease, what I do is I take the change in price and divide it by the original price. So for example, if the price of shoes dropped from $120 to $100 and you are to find the percent of decrease, what I do is I take 120 minus 100, that gives me the change in price, and then divide that by the original price, which was 100. So the change in price was $20. Divide that by the original price of $120. I can divide to get 0.16 repeating, and then convert this to a percentage. So I move the decimal place over 2 places, 1, 2, to get 16.666%, which would round to 16.67%. So the percent of decrease would be 16.67%. Example 2. The price of a car increased from $5,000 to $5,500. And to calculate the percent of increase, I use the exact same formula. I find the change in price, divide it by the original price. Well, the change in price is found by looking at the two numbers, 5,500 and 5,000. If I subtract the two, that gives me the change in price, and then I divide by the original price of 5,000. So I get 500 divided by 5,000. I can divide those, and the zeros here will cancel, and these zeros will cancel. So 5 over 50, which would be 1 over 10. So that is 1 over 10, which would equal 0.1. And then as a percent, I move this over 2 places, 1, 2, to get 10%. So the percent of increase would be 10%. For example 3, we're going to add a little bit more difficulty to this question. You are told that Gunther pays $125 for car insurance each month this year. This is an increase of 5% from last year's rates. What was the price of insurance last year? So I can use my little formula where I have the percent of change equals the change in price divided by the original price. So the change in price would be subtracting this year's rate minus last year's rate. And then the original price was last year's rate. So what I'm trying to find is the price of insurance last year. That is my unknown. So I can replace last year with the letter X. And then I can fill in the other parts. Percent of change was 5%. So 5% would be 0.05. And then $125 is what he pays this year. So what I have is 0.05 equals 125 minus X divided by X. So from here I can solve this. I need to get rid of the X in the bottom, and I can do that by multiplying both sides by X. And I do that because here is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. And when I multiply by X on the right side, the X's will cancel. So on the right side, I have 125 minus X, and on the left side, I have 0.05 times X. So then from here, I'm going to write this up on the top at this point, and then I can bring the X's together. And I can do that, and I can also get rid of this decimal. So if I get rid of the decimal first, it might make things a little bit easier. So what I can do is actually multiply everything, both sides, by 100. When I multiply the left side by 100, the decimal moves over 2 places to get 5x. And then 125 times 100 would be 125 and then 2 zeros. And then x times 100 would be 100x. So now I have this new equation without decimals, and now I can bring the x's together. So I can bring the 100 to the left side by adding 100. So I add 100x to both sides. On the right side, this will cancel. On the left side, 100 plus 5 is 105x. And then from here, I can divide both sides by 105. So when I divide by 105 on the left side, the 105's cancel, and I'm left with x on the left. And then on the right, 12,500 divided by 105 would give me $119.05. So what I have found is that last year's rate for Gunther's car insurance was $119.05 per month. Next, we're going to work with word problems with percentages. Here we are told that a clothing store is giving a 30% discount on shirts. How much did Joey pay on a shirt that originally cost $30? So there are two ways to get to the correct solution. So we can begin with solution 1, and what I do here is I take 30% of 30. So 30% of 30, I take 30% or 0.3 and multiply it by 30, which would give me 9. So here, that's 30% of 30, and that is how much the shirt is discounted. Meaning I take $30 and subtract 9 to get my new total of $21. So this would be the discounted price. So that is one way of calculating your solution. The other way to calculate is I can realize that if we are discounting something 30%, that means we are paying 70%. So we do 100 minus 30. So 100 minus 30 is 70%. So I can find 70% of 30, which is how much Joey paid. So 70% of 30 I find by taking 0.7 and multiply it by 30, which would also give me 21. So either way, we would get the same answer of $21. Now lastly, we're going to work with interest. So here is an example of an interest problem. Monica invested part of her $8,000 at 4% interest and the rest at 7% interest. Her total annual income from these investments is $520. How much is invested at 4% and how much at 7%? So what I can do is I can create a table to help me as I make my calculations. And I also need to realize how interest works. So interest, the amount that she earns, you take the amount invested and multiply it by the rate of the investment. If I multiply those together, that gives me the amount of interest. So here, on the top of this table, I'm going to write the formula. So the amount invested times rate equals interest. So this column here would be the amount invested, this column is your rate, and this last column is your interest earned. Now for the rows, we have two different scenarios. We have money invested at 4%, which would be row 1, and money invested at 7%, which would be row 2. So from here, we can fill in the table. So for the amount invested, we know that the total is going to be $8,000 that she invested. So part is in the 4% and part is in the 7% investment. So if I let the amount invested at the 4% interest be represented by X, then the amount at the 7% interest would be $8,000 minus X. Because whatever was invested here, we subtract that from 8,000 to find what was invested down here. So for example, if you invested $1,000 here for the 4%, then the rest of it would be at the 7%, which would be 8,000 minus 1,000, which would be 7,000. Okay, so that would be your setup for the amount invested. And then the rate, we have 4% interest rate. So the rate here is 0.04. And the rate down here is 0.07 for 7%. And then this last column is going to be found by taking these two other columns and multiplying that together. So for the interest for 4%, that can be calculated by taking 0.04 times that by the amount invested, which is x. So 0.04 times x. The second row, I have 0.07 times this entire quantity of 8,000 minus x. So I have 0.07 times 8,000 minus x. And that would be the interest earned for the 7% returns. So here my table is all filled in. And then at this point, I can look at this last column, the interest. Because the only thing we've not used is the fact that her income, or the interest earned, is $520. That is her total interest earned. So if I add up these amount of interest earned, that's going to equal 520. So that's what I do. I take 0.04x plus the 0.07 times 8,000 minus x and set that equal to 520. Because if I add those together, that gives me the total interest earned. And then from here, I can solve. So to solve, we can get rid of the decimal if we wanted to. Realize that this is one term, and then this here is like another term. So I can multiply everything on the left and the right side, even the 520, multiply that by 100. And I choose 100 because 100 times these decimals over here would get rid of the decimal. So 100 times 0.04 would give me 4, so that's 4x. 100 times 0.07 would give me 7. And that does not affect what's in parentheses because this is like one thing. So if I tried to multiply the 0.07 by 100 and the other parts by 100, you're actually multiplying by 10,000 for the middle parts, or the inside parts. So we want to just multiply the 0.07 by 100. And then 520 times 100, we just add 2 zeros to the end. Now from here, I can simplify this left side. I can distribute the 7 times 8,000, and 7 times negative x. 7 times 8,000 is 56,000, and 7 times negative x is negative 7x. And then from here, I can combine. So 4x minus 7x, that would give me negative 3x. And then I can also subtract this 56,000 to the right side to bring it away from the x. So when I subtract, it's going to cancel on the left side. So I have just the negative 3x over here. And then 52,000 minus 56,000 would be negative 4,000. And then to finish off, we have negative 3 times x. So to get rid of the negative 3, I need to divide. So on the left side, the negative 3's cancel. I have x over here. And then on the right side, the two negatives cancel. That becomes positive. And then 4,000 divided by 3. I can do that over here quick. 4,000 divided by 3, we have 1. Subtract, we have 1. Bring down the 0. That's 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, we have 1. 0. It's going to be 3. 9. Subtract again, it's going to be another 3. And then repeating. So it keeps repeating over and over. So my solution would be 1,333. And then 0.33. That is my value for x. So that would be the amount invested at 4%. Then 8,000 minus that number would give me the amount invested at 7%. And that would be 6.67. And that's the amount invested at 7%. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.